My family excluded me from their reunion, but when I announced my engagement and got complete silence, I threw a party without them and exposed all their toxic messages they never saw coming. I'm 29 years old. I'm a freelance graphic designer, and I need to tell this story because what happened like 6 months ago still has me processing a ton of contradictory emotions. Basically, I discovered that my family excluded me from a family reunion because, well, apparently they don't respect my life choices or my career, and what came after was like a snowball of drama that ended with me cutting ties with most of them. I know it sounds intense, but let me explain from the beginning because I need you to understand how we got to this point. I grew up in a pretty traditional family, you know? One of those where you're expected to follow a very specific path. College, corporate career, marriage before 30, house in the suburbs, 2.5 kids, all that stuff. My siblings Trevor and Rebecca followed that script to the letter. Trevor is 35. He's a marketing executive at a big company. Been married to Ashley for like 8 years, and they have 2 beautiful kids. Rebecca is 32. She's an engineer, also married, and at that time she was pregnant with her second child. I, on the other hand, was always the black sheep, I guess. I studied graphic design, worked at a couple of agencies during my 20s, but I hated the corporate culture, so like 4 years ago I decided to go out on my own as a freelancer. And honestly, I'm doing well. I mean, I'm not a millionaire, but I make enough to live comfortably. I have my own clients, I work from home, I travel when I want. For me, it's the dream, you know what I mean? But for my family, especially for my parents, it's like I decided to throw my life away. Since I made the decision to be a freelancer, things changed. My mom, Karen, always makes these passive-aggressive comments like, "Oh, Melissa, when are you going to get a real job?" Or, "It must be nice not having to go to an office every day." As if I was just watching Netflix in my pajamas all day instead of working. My dad is quieter, but I can see on his face that he's disappointed. And Trevor and Rebecca don't help much either. Always bragging about their promotions and their bonuses and their corporate benefits. While I'm there like, yeah. Well, I designed the logo for a coffee startup last week and they paid me really well. Thanks for asking. But they never ask, you know? They just assume my life is a disaster because it doesn't fit their perfect mold. Oh, and I forgot to mention Michael, my boyfriend at the time, now my fiancé. We'd been together 5 years when all this happened. Michael is a photographer, also freelance, so he perfectly understands my lifestyle and my choices. He's super supportive. Like, he's the person who always tells me to follow my dreams and not listen to what others think. My family doesn't love him much either because, guess what? He's also freelance and doesn't have a traditional job. My mom literally once asked when he was going to get a stable job, as if being a photographer wasn't a legitimate profession. Anyway, Michael has been my rock through all of this. But we'll get to that part. So, fast forward to June of this year. I was scrolling through Instagram one afternoon, you know, procrastinating when I should have been working on a project, when I see that Rebecca posted a photo of the whole family in my parents' backyard. And when I say the whole family, I mean the whole family. My parents, Trevor with Ashley and their kids, Rebecca with her husband, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, even my grandmother was there. And I had no idea there was a family reunion that weekend. Literally, nobody told me anything. I just stared at the photo for like 5 minutes trying to process what I was seeing, because I thought maybe it was an impromptu last-minute thing, right? But then I saw more photos and there were decorations. There was elaborate food. There was a banner that said Garcia Family Reunion 2025. I mean, this was planned, and I didn't receive any invitation. I swear I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I called my mom immediately, like, I didn't even wait to calm down. I just dialed her number with shaking hands. When she answered, she was all cheerful and casual, like nothing was wrong, and I said, "Mom, why didn't you tell me there was a family reunion?" And there was this awkward silence before she said, "Oh, honey, we just thought you wouldn't want to come. You're always so busy with your work and all that." And I was like, "Excuse me? It didn't occur to you to ask me? You just assumed?" And she started with her excuses, that Trevor organized everything really quickly, that Rebecca wanted something intimate. Is that anyway? I'm always traveling or working on my projects, and don't have time for these things. And the truth is, none of those reasons made sense, because I'd literally been home all that month finishing some designs, and I definitely would have gone if they'd invited me. I hung up the phone feeling like garbage. Michael came home and found me crying on the couch, and when I told him what happened, he got furious. Like, more furious than me. He told me that was completely unacceptable and that I deserved an apology. But I knew my family. I knew I wasn't going to get any apology. But what I did decide is that I wasn't going to stay quiet. I spent the next few days thinking about what to do, and finally I decided I was going to show up at the next family gathering without warning. Yeah, I know, it sounds petty, but I needed to make a statement. You know what I mean? Turns out 2 weeks later it was my dad's birthday, and obviously there was going to be a celebration at his house. This time they did invite me, probably because it would be too obvious not to, but the invitation came like 3 days before by text message, super informal, like it was no big deal. I decided to go, but I prepared something special. I made homemade cookies, those ones I always made when I was a kid and that my whole family loved, and I put them in a nice box with a bow. I thought, I'm going to be the kindest and most correct person in the world, and that way they're going to look like assholes for having excluded me. I arrived at my parents' house that Sunday afternoon with Michael, carrying my cookies and a forced smile. And the energy when we walked in was super weird. Like, everyone went quiet for a second and then started with super formal and cold greetings. My mom accepted the cookies with a short thanks and left them in the kitchen without even opening them. Trevor gave me one of those awkward hugs where they barely touch you, and Rebecca literally just waved at me from across the room. It was like being at a party where everyone knows a joke except you, you know? Things got worse during the meal. We were all sitting at the table in the backyard. There were like 20 people. And the conversation was flowing normally until Rebecca decided to make an announcement. She stood up, tapped her glass with a fork to get everyone's attention, and said, I want to share something with everyone. She was radiant, with that super happy pregnant mom energy, and she announced she was expecting a girl. Everyone exploded in applause and shouts of excitement. My mom started crying with happiness. Trevor got up to hug her. It was like a massive celebration, and I was happy for her too. Obviously. I got up to congratulate her and everything, but there was something about that moment that felt exclusive, like I was watching the scene from the outside. After the excitement died down a bit and everyone went back to their conversations, I felt it was a good time to share my own news. Because yeah, I forgot to mention this, but Michael had proposed to me literally 2 weeks before. It was super romantic, on a beach at sunset, with a beautiful ring he designed specifically for me. I'd been floating on a cloud ever since and had been waiting for the right moment to tell my family. I thought my dad's birthday, with everyone gathered, would be perfect. So I stood up, just like Rebecca, tapped my glass, and when everyone turned to look at me, I said, I also have some news. Michael and I are getting married. I raised my hand to show the ring, smiling from ear to ear, expecting that same explosion of joy and applause that Rebecca had received. But what I got was silence. Like, absolute and uncomfortable silence. My mom forced a smile and said, Oh, how nice. Congratulations. With the same enthusiasm you'd use to say someone bought a new car. My dad nodded and muttered something about hoping we'd thought things through. Trevor said, Wow, I didn't know you guys were ready for that step, with a tone that clearly implied he thought we weren't. And Rebecca didn't even say anything. She just looked at me with this expression like, Did you really just do this in my moment? I stood there like an idiot, with my ring sparkling in the sun, feeling my enthusiasm evaporate in real time. Michael squeezed my hand under the table, and I saw he was processing what had just happened too. I tried to continue the conversation, saying something about how we were thinking of a small wedding next year, but nobody really responded. The conversation quickly changed topics. I think my uncle started talking about the garden or something, and it was like my announcement had never happened. I lasted like another half hour before I couldn't take it anymore. I got up from the table and went to the bathroom, and Rebecca followed me. I thought maybe she was coming to congratulate me properly in private, but no. She came into the bathroom behind me and closed the door, and with her arms crossed, she said, You know that was super inappropriate, right? I was like, What? And she said, making that announcement right after mine, You always have to make everything about you. Today was my moment to shine, and you ruined it. I just stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. I told her, Rebecca, I got engaged 2 weeks ago. I didn't do it. To steal your spotlight? I just wanted to share my happiness with the family. And she responded, "Well, you could have waited another day. But no, you had to do it today. Typical of you." I left the bathroom before I could respond, because I knew if I stayed, I was going to say something I'd regret. I went back to the table and Trevor approached me. And I thought, okay, maybe he's going to be different. But no. He took me to one side of the yard and basically gave me the same shit as Rebecca, saying I always seek attention and that I should have been more considerate of my sister's feelings. And something in me broke in that moment. I told them, "You know what? You guys excluded me from the family reunion 2 weeks ago. I didn't receive any invitation, no decent explanation, nothing. And now that I come here and try to share something important in my life, you treat me like I'm a selfish and dramatic person. This is bullshit." My voice was getting louder and people started turning to look at us. My mom came over asking what was happening, and I couldn't contain myself anymore. I told her, "You lied to me about why they didn't invite me to the reunion. The truth is you don't want me here because you don't approve of my life. Because I don't have a corporate job and because my boyfriend doesn't either. And because I don't fit into your perfect image of what a successful daughter should be." My dad tried to interrupt, saying I was exaggerating, but I continued. I told them I was tired of feeling less than my siblings, tired of them minimizing my achievements, tired of them treating Michael like he wasn't good enough, and that if that's what they thought of me, then clearly they didn't need to have me in their lives. I grabbed my purse, signaled to Michael, and we left. As we were walking to the car, I could hear my mom yelling that I was being dramatic and to come back, but I didn't. Michael drove home because I was shaking too much to do it. When we got there, I completely broke down. I cried like I hadn't cried since I was a kid. All that accumulated frustration from years came out at once. Michael just hugged me and let me cry, without saying anything, just being there. The next few days were weird. Total silence from my family. Not a message, not a call, nothing. Part of me expected someone to apologize or at least try to talk to me, but it didn't happen. And honestly, after processing everything, I realized I didn't need that apology. What I needed was to surround myself with people who really valued me. So I decided to organize my own engagement party. Small and intimate, just with close friends and some cousins who have always supported me. Like Stella, my favorite cousin who's always been more like a sister to me. The party was at our apartment, 2 weeks after the disaster of my dad's birthday. We decorated the place with lights, prepared homemade food, put on good music, and it was beautiful. Stella brought champagne and gave a super emotional toast about following your dreams and surrounding yourself with people who lift you up instead of people who bring you down. My friends were amazing. Everyone's super excited for us, asking about wedding plans, wanting to see photos of the ring. It was exactly what I needed. A real celebration with people who really cared about me. Obviously, I didn't invite my parents or Trevor or Rebecca. And equally obviously, when my mom found out through Facebook, because one of my cousins posted photos, she called me furious. She woke me up on a Monday morning screaming over the phone about how dare I have an engagement party and not invite her. I told her, in the calmest voice possible, that after how they treated me at Dad's birthday, I didn't feel comfortable having a celebration with them. She started with the whole speech about how I was her daughter, that she had a right to be there, that I was being immature and vindictive. I told her that she was also my mom and had the right to include me in the family reunion but decided not to. So now I was making my own decisions about who I wanted in my life. I hung up before she could keep yelling. That same afternoon, the family WhatsApp group exploded. Literally, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Trevor wrote a long message about how I was destroying the family, that I'd always been dramatic, and that this was the last straw. Rebecca joined in saying I was selfish and only thought about myself, that I never considered other people's feelings. Even my dad, who almost never writes in the group, sent a message saying he was disappointed in my behavior and that I needed to grow up. And I just read the messages feeling calmer and calmer, because every word they wrote just confirmed that I'd made the right decision. Stella called me that day and told me she'd had a big argument with my mom defending me. Apparently, my mom had told her that I'd always been problematic and that my rebellious attitude was causing all this drama. Stella told her that the only drama was my family's inability to accept that I'd chosen a different path and that I was successful on my own terms. She told me my mom didn't like that at all. and that they'd ended the conversation shouting. I felt bad that Stella had gotten in trouble because of me, but she told me, "Don't worry, someone needed to tell them the truth." I decided to respond in the family group, but not in the way they expected. I wasn't going to argue or defend myself. Instead, I took screenshots of some messages my mom had sent me in the past making derogatory comments about my work, of conversations where Trevor and Rebecca clearly belittled me, and I put them in the group with just one message. If this is what you think of me, then I don't need to be in this group or in this family. Have a nice life. And after that, I left the group and blocked my parents and siblings everywhere. WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, calls, everything. Michael was worried I'd regret it later, but the truth is, I felt liberated. Like, for the first time in years, I didn't have that constant anxiety of not being enough for them. We started planning the wedding, just the two of us and our close friends. We decided it would be on a small beach, something intimate and meaningful. And no, we didn't invite my family. Stella is invited, obviously, and some other cousins who have supported me, but my parents and siblings aren't going to be there. That decision was hard at first because, it's your family, they're supposed to be at your wedding. But after everything that happened, I realized their presence would only bring negativity to a day that's supposed to be happy. My mom tried to call me like 3 months later, left a voicemail saying we needed to talk about the wedding, that they couldn't believe I wasn't going to invite them. How could I do that to my parents? I listened to it once and deleted it. I didn't respond. Stella told me my family is going around, saying I'm the bad guy, that I broke their hearts, that I'm an ungrateful daughter. But she also told me that several relatives who aren't that close with my parents have contacted her asking what really happened because the stories didn't add up. Some of them have written to me directly, offering their support and telling me they understand my decision. The wedding is in 2 months. We have like 40 guests confirmed, all people who really love and support us. My dress is beautiful. I designed it myself and a seamstress friend is making it for me. Michael is super excited. We've been planning every detail together and it's exactly what we wanted. Intimate, personal, no pretensions. It's not going to be the big traditional wedding my mom probably imagined for me, but it's going to be ours. And that's what matters. Does all this hurt? Of course it does. I'm not going to lie and say I'm completely fine with having cut ties with most of my family. There are days when I think about the good times, about Christmases when I was a kid, about the summers we spent together, and I get nostalgic. But then I remember how they made me feel, how they constantly made me feel less than, how they never valued my achievements or respected my decisions. And I realize that the nostalgia is for what that family could have been, not for what it really was. Michael and I are building our own family now, with friends we choose and relatives who choose us back. Stella comes over for dinner like twice a month. We have game nights with our friends. We celebrate each other's achievements without judgment. My design business is better than ever. I landed 3 big clients this year, and I'm making more than when I worked at an agency. Michael just had an exhibition of his photographs that was a total success. We're doing well. Better than well, actually. Last week, I ran into Rebecca at the supermarket by accident. It was super awkward. We saw each other from a distance and both thought about turning around, but it was too late. We ended up in the same checkout line and had no choice but to be close. She didn't talk to me. I didn't talk to her. We just stood there in silence, looking at our phones. When I finished paying and was leaving, I heard her say my name. I stopped and turned around, and she just said, "You look good." I told her, "You too," and kept walking. I don't know what that means. If it's a first step towards some kind of reconciliation, or if it was just a casual comment. Honestly, I'm not sure I want to know yet. For now, I'm focused on my wedding, on my work, on my relationship, on the people who really matter to me and who I really matter to. Maybe someday things with my family will get better. Maybe not. But I learned that I can't force people to value me. And I definitely won't stay in spaces where they make me feel like I'm not enough. I deserve better than that. We all deserve better than that. And if that makes me selfish or dramatic in their eyes, well then I guess I am. And I'm completely at peace with that.